Welcome to Podcast Summaries, where every week we break down powerful ideas from 8 to 10 top podcasts to help you grow, heal, and thrive while saving time. If you find this summary helpful, please subscribe and check out links for more content. Your support keeps this journey going. Here is a rundown on Buddhist Monk. The Hidden Epidemic Behind Your Depression and Anxiety, featuring Gelong Thubten by Steven Bartlett. Steven Bartlett wonders why Gelong Thubten's work is more important now than ever before. Gelong Thubten believes it's because we need meditation more than ever due to the speeding up of life and the widespread misconceptions about meditation. He wants to clarify these misconceptions and help people understand the true benefits of meditation. Steven Bartlett asks Gelong Thubten to share his thoughts on the state of the Western world. Gelong Thubten notes that we're constantly bombarded with information, which affects our stress levels and confidence. We're made to feel like we're not good enough and that we need something more to be happy. He believes we've lost our power and are at the mercy of external factors. Steven Bartlett inquires about Gelong Thubten's perspective on human purposefulness. Gelong Thubten thinks that the breakdown of religion has led to a sense of disconnection from our purpose. We're now obsessed with finding our individual purpose, but this obsession can lead to an insatiable wanting mind. He suggests that what we're really looking for is something deeper within ourselves, but we don't know how to access it. Steven Bartlett asks if it's wrong to be in search of purpose. Gelong Thubten says it's not wrong, but we're misguided in thinking that happiness comes from external sources. We need to focus on our internal experiences and learn to take hold of our own minds. He believes that meditation can help us become our own purpose and generator of our own experiences. Steven Bartlett shares some statistics about the state of well-being in the Western world, including the alarming rates of suicidality and unhappiness. Gelong Thubten agrees that something is amiss and attributes it to our culture's focus on material comfort and the mechanisms of desire. He believes that we're caught in a cycle of wanting more, which leads to feelings of emptiness and disconnection. Steven Bartlett asks Gelong Thubten to share his personal story of how he learned these lessons. Gelong Thubten reveals that he became a monk through extreme suffering, having lived a life of ambition and self-loathing. He had a dramatic burnout at the age of 21, which led him to question everything he was doing with his life. Steven Bartlett asks Gelong Thubten to describe what he was like on the day he arrived at the monastery. Gelong Thubten says he was very ill, both physically and mentally, and was in a state of complete breakdown. He had been living a party lifestyle, trying to escape his suffering, but it had caught up with him. Steven Bartlett inquires about the origins of Gelong Thubten's self-loathing and negative self-talk. Gelong Thubten shares that he had a traumatic childhood, including experiences of abuse, which left imprints on him. He also talks about the pressure to conform to societal expectations and the fear of not being good enough. Steven Bartlett asks Gelong Thubten to describe the voice in his head that he used to experience. Gelong Thubten says it was a voice of self-disgust, telling him he was disgusting, no good, and a failure. He believes that this voice originated from a combination of factors, including his environment, upbringing, and past experiences. Steven Bartlett asks Gelong Thubten to share some of the practical things he's done in the monastery over the past 30 years. Gelong Thubten says that he's taken vows to give up certain things, such as intoxicants and celibacy, but it didn't feel like a sacrifice to him. Instead, it felt like immediate relief from the things that made him ill. He's also followed moral vows, such as not telling lies, stealing, or harming others. Gelong Thubten explains that these rules are in place to help him focus on his meditation practice and to avoid distractions. He notes that celibacy is not about suppressing desire, but rather about observing and transforming it. Gelong Thubten shares that when he first became a monk, he found it a relief to give up his old life and start anew. He emphasizes that celibacy is not for everyone, but it suits a certain type of person. He also notes that Buddhism is not just about giving up things, but also about cultivating positive qualities such as compassion and wisdom. Steven Bartlett asks Gelong Thubten to explain why sex is considered a distraction in Buddhism. Gelong Thubten responds that it's not that sex is inherently bad, but rather that it can be a source of attachment and distraction. He notes that as a monk, he is trying to focus on his meditation practice and to avoid distractions that might hinder his progress. Gelong Thubten shares that when he first shifted meditating, he found it incredibly difficult. He thought that meditation was about clearing the mind, but he soon realized that this approach was not working for him. He notes that meditation is not about suppressing thoughts, but rather about observing them and learning to work with them. Steven Bartlett asks Gelong Thubten to explain what meditation is and how it works. Gelong Thubten responds that meditation is about changing one's relationship with thoughts. He notes that the goal of meditation is not to clear the mind, but rather to learn to observe thoughts and to cultivate a sense of awareness. Gelong Thubten shares that when he first shifted meditating, he found it difficult to focus on his breath. He notes that the mind is constantly wandering, and that it's easy to get caught up in thoughts and distractions. However, he emphasizes that this is a normal part of the meditation process, and that the key is to gently bring the mind back to the breath. Steven Bartlett asks Gelong Thubten to explain how meditation can help people to find freedom and happiness. Gelong Thubten responds that meditation can help people to develop a sense of awareness and to cultivate a sense of inner freedom. He notes that this freedom is not just about personal development, but also about compassion and helping others. Gelong Thubten shares that he believes that people can be effective in their jobs and still cultivate a sense of inner freedom and compassion. He notes that meditation is not just about relaxation, but rather about cultivating a sense of awareness and clarity. He emphasizes that this awareness can be applied to all areas of life, including work and relationships. He asks Gelong Thubten if he knows of any successful people who have benefited from meditation in their professional life. Gelong Thubten explains that meditation can make anyone more effective in their life by allowing them to become their own boss. He notes that being the CEO of one's own mind is a difficult task, but those who can achieve it become more effective in the world. Meditation also makes people more compassionate and ethical, leading them to think about how they can use their success to make the world a better place. Steven Bartlett shares examples of successful people who have credited meditation with their success, including Ray Dalio, Mark Benioff, Oprah Winfrey, Jack Dorsey, and Steve Jobs. Gelong Thubten notes that people often misunderstand the concept of calmness in meditation, thinking it means being tranquilized or spaced out. Instead, he explains that calmness means being able to keep a cool head under fire, being precise and focused, and holding on to one's purpose. Steven Bartlett asks Gelong Thubten to elaborate on how Buddhism views victimhood and identity. Gelong Thubten explains that Buddhism teaches that we are not our past, and that our identity is an illusion. Gelong Thubten shares his personal experience of struggling with depression, anxiety, and panic attacks during a 4-year meditation retreat. He explains that he initially tried to analyze his past and the stories behind his suffering, but this only made things worse. It wasn't until he hit rock bottom and had to confront his own pain that he began to make progress. Steven Bartlett asks Gelong Thubten how he was able to alleviate his suffering. Gelong Thubten explains that he learned to drop the story behind his pain and focus on the feeling itself. He notes that this is a key instruction in meditation, to focus on the sensation in the body without judgment. By doing so, he was able to accept his pain and find compassion and self-acceptance at a deep level. This, in turn, allowed him to relax and release his suffering. Gelong Thubten explains that he felt love for that part of himself, and that this was only possible when he stopped getting distracted by the history and details of his past and instead focused on the feeling in his body in the present moment. He notes that this feeling was physical, like a twisting knife in the heart or a sinking feeling in the chest, and that relating to it with kindness taught him how to love himself in an accepting way. He notes that this practice didn't make the pain go away, but it did calm things down and help him find a sense of peace. Gelong Thubten describes it as focusing on the physical sensation of the pain, bypassing thoughts and distractions, and then flooding the feeling with love. He notes that this is possible because our minds are naturally compassionate, and that we can tap into this compassion by clearing away our thoughts and ideas and simply sitting with the feeling. Gelong Thubten discusses the concept of forgiveness, noting that it's not about condoning or excusing the actions of others, but rather about freeing ourselves from the burden of holding on to anger and resentment. He shares that he was able to forgive the man who murdered his teacher, in part because he realized that the man was psychotic and unable to control his actions. He also notes that forgiveness is a process, and that it's not always easy, but that meditation can help us loosen our grip on negative emotions and develop a greater sense of compassion and understanding. Steven Bartlett asks Gelong Thubten if he has forgiven all of the people in his life who have hurt him, including his parents and the person who sexually abused him. Gelong Thubten responds that he doesn't know if forgiveness is a single moment or a process, but that he has learned to forgive the feelings that those incidents gave rise to. Gelong Thubten discusses the idea that our suffering can be used for our mental transformation, and that it's like compost that can help us grow and develop. He notes that thinking deeply about the situation and trying to understand the suffering of the other person can help us forgive and let go of our anger and resentment. He also shares a meditation practice where you imagine swapping places with the person who hurt you and looking at the world from their perspective. Steven Bartlett asks Gelong Thubten about the challenge of forgiving someone who has hurt us deeply and how we can overcome the feeling that they are an arsehole who deserves our anger and resentment. Gelong Thubten responds that we are all confused and struggling, and that we should try to lighten up and see things from a more compassionate perspective. He notes that meditation can help us develop this perspective, and that it's not about condoning or excusing the actions of others, but rather about freeing ourselves from the burden of holding on to negative emotions. Gelong Thubten discusses the idea that fear can hold us back from pursuing our dreams and passions, and that it can manifest as a subtle anxiety that pervades our daily life. He notes that Buddhism teaches us that fear is a natural part of the human experience, but that we can learn to overcome it through meditation and the development of compassion and understanding. He asks Gelong Thubten what we can do to shield ourselves from this fear. Gelong Thubten suggests that meditation is the key to protecting our minds from fear. He emphasizes that it's not about running away from the world or hiding from our problems, but rather about learning to face our fears head-on and cultivating a sense of fearlessness in a frightened world. Steven Bartlett asks Gelong Thubten to elaborate on what these microscopic moments of meditation entail. Gelong Thubten explains that it's about taking a few moments to focus on our breath, notice our surroundings, and become aware of our thoughts and emotions. He emphasizes that the goal is not to achieve a specific state or feeling, but rather to simply be present and aware in the moment. Gelong Thubten also discusses the importance of developing a daily meditation practice, starting with just 10 minutes a day. He suggests that we should aim to meditate in the morning when our cortisol levels are highest, and that we should focus on cultivating compassion and kindness towards ourselves and others. He emphasizes that meditation is not about achieving a specific goal or feeling, but rather about cultivating a sense of awareness and presence in our daily life. Steven Bartlett asks Gelong Thubten how he can start implementing meditation into his daily routine, and Gelong Thubten offers some practical advice. He suggests that Steven Bartlett start by setting aside 10 minutes each morning to meditate, and that he focus on cultivating compassion and kindness towards himself and others. He also emphasizes the importance of being gentle with ourselves and not judging our meditation practice. Gelong Thubten shares his own personal experience with meditation, explaining that he has been practicing for over 30 years and has seen significant changes in his life as a result. He emphasizes that meditation is not a one-time achievement, but rather an ongoing process that requires commitment and dedication. He also notes that he still struggles with stress and anxiety, but that he has learned to be gentle with himself and to approach these challenges with kindness and compassion. Steven Bartlett asks Gelong Thubten what he thinks is the most important thing that they didn't discuss in their conversation, and Gelong Thubten emphasizes the importance of actually putting meditation into practice. He notes that many people are interested in meditation but struggle to make it a part of their daily routine. He encourages listeners to take action and start meditating, even if it's just for a few minutes each day. Gelong Thubten believes the missing link is that people try to force themselves to meditate because they feel they should, rather than genuinely wanting to. This approach can lead to a sense of hopelessness and make meditation feel like another chore on the to-do list. Thubten suggests that the key to developing a daily meditation habit is to understand that it can provide the happiness, freedom, and release that people often seek in external sources like coffee, drugs, or sex. By recognizing that meditation can offer what they're truly looking for, people can become more enthusiastic about practicing it every day. Buddhist centers often offer such retreats, and they're not about converting people to Buddhism, but rather providing a supportive environment for exploration. Steven Bartlett asks if Buddhism is growing, and Gelong Thubten confirms that it is. Thubten attributes this growth to the fact that Buddhism doesn't try to attract followers, but rather allows people to discover its value organically. As a result, there's a growing interest in disciplines like meditation, psychotherapy, and counseling that help people understand their minds better. Steven Bartlett notes that people are often drawn to Buddhism because they feel that the traditional systems and approaches have failed them. Gelong Thubten agrees, suggesting that people are waking up to the realization that the system hasn't worked for them and that they've created their own prison through materialism and individualism. Buddhism offers an alternative approach by encouraging people to look within themselves for answers and to take control of their consciousness. Steven Bartlett reflects on the idea that the answers people seek are often within themselves, and that Buddhism provides a unique approach to finding those answers. Gelong Thubten agrees, citing the Buddhist concept of the sleeping Buddha within each person, which has the potential to be awakened and to bring about positive change. When asked about how he expresses love and appreciation for the people in his life, Gelong Thubten shares that he tries to be present with them during difficult times, without judgment. He acknowledges that this is not always easy and that he often fails, but he strives to be more mindful and compassionate in his relationships. Steven Bartlett thanks Gelong Thubten for his time and for sharing his message, which he believes is more important now than ever. Thubten's books, including A Monk's Guide to Happiness and Handbook for Hard Times, offer practical guidance for those seeking a more mindful and compassionate approach to life. Steven Bartlett expresses his appreciation for Thubten's work and the impact it can have on people's lives, and Gelong Thubten encourages him to start his meditation practice, reminding him that it's okay if his mind wanders, and that the thoughts that arise can actually make his meditation stronger. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe, check out YouTube channel, and just remember, subscription is only £1 or $1 per month. Leave a comment or review. Until next time, happy listening.